This is Ladies Advanced Strength 2.0, Phase 3, Day 1. So this is the Bulgarian split squat day. This is the barbell Bulgarian split squat. So a little bit more challenging for balance, but you can always handle more weight with a barbell than holding 2 dumbbells. So you can start there, Lily. So a lot of the coaching cues are exactly the same for the barbell as the 2 dumbbells, obviously, but the main difference is that you have to grip a barbell on your back like a barbell back squat. So with that, you use the same cues as you would if you were doing a back squat. So grab the bar nice and tight, squeeze as tight as you can, then go underneath. And the bar will rest then on plenty of muscle rather than being loose or more over to one side, which is a very, very common mistake, just to set up before you even have the bar. The second thing is your stance. So at very far out in front, you're going to work more glutes. Very far back, you're going to bend your knee more and work more quads. So I would just do what's natural for the client, however far back feels natural, and just tell them to go with that. So it's a knees over toes split squat or an ATG split squat. You're pushing the knee forward as far as possible. Your Bulgarian split squat should never look like that, and you shouldn't be trying to make it look like that. It's a different exercise. So usually in between the 2 extremes, around mid-range there, which is what most people gravitate towards naturally anyways, is the perfect stance. Drop down low and snap up to the heel. Perfect. This is the Nordic fall. So you want to have your knee to your shoulder. You want to keep that as straight as possible. And you're going to do that by pushing your hips forward and squeezing your glutes. So fall forward there slowly. And you want to keep tension as much as you can for as long as possible on the way down. And then on the way back up, use your hands to fire yourself back up like a press up, but also use your hamstrings to pull, exactly. And that's the part that most people skip and most people get wrong with a Nordic fall, is they don't use their hamstrings at all on the way back up. They just come back up to the starting position and start falling again. So on the way down, resist, 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 really slow on the eccentric portion. Way back up, pull with your hamstrings. Squeeze back up. Slow, slow, slow. And squeeze back up. And hips forward even more. And the longer the set goes on, the harder it'll be to keep your hips forward, because it puts more tension on the hamstrings, so you start to lean forward a little bit more. So you want to resist that as much as possible. This is the eccentric chin-up, and this is the most important exercise that you can do when you're trying to get your first chin-up. Okay, so you can start there. So you want to grab the bar about shoulder width, and jump up to the top, legs up the back, the legs, and you want to get someone to stop you from shaking if you can. If you can't get someone beside you to stop you from shaking, and you're training in the gym on your own, just make sure the box is up higher, so you just step up onto it. But if you're jumping up from the bottom, there'll be a lot of shaking. It'll make it a lot harder. And then real slow, squeeze the bar as tight as you can. We'll go one more. Jump up real high. Squeeze tight as you can. Hold at the top for 2-3 seconds. That'll also help you stop from shaking. And then squeeze the bar as tight as you can. Keep your chest up. That's excellent. And slow all the way down. So this time, bring your legs up the back. I want you to slow all the way till your arms are dead straight, and then hang with your arms straight for a second or 2. Exactly, and down to that end range. And that's the part a lot of people skip. This is the 60-degree dumbbell press. It's just before you start there, Lily. So usually most people do a lot of 75-degree pressing or 45-degree, and 60-degree is ignored a bit. So I would spend some time, I do every year, doing a 60-degree press for a month or 2, because you're going to get strong at that angle as well. It's going to help the shoulder press and the bench press. So kick back up. Good. And that's perfect neutral grip and drive up. Okay, let's go for 10 reps. So the first thing with a press, as usual, is you want to make sure your feet are planted into the ground really hard, and that your feet are also, your heels are behind your knees. Second thing then is use the bench, so push your head back into it, Lily. Good. And drive, punch, 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 easy, good stuff. And make sure your head is planted into the bench and your shoulders push back into it, your feet are screwed into the ground, and that way you're going to be able to generate a lot more force. This is the seated banded abduction. So this is a very simple exercise, isolation exercise for the glutes, and all you need to do it is a band, but you will have some gyms that have machines for this as well. So chest up, shoulders back, and you want to push out your knees as hard as you can against the band. So the range of motion is short. We're going to bring the band down a little bit lower. Pull it down a little bit lower. Yeah, towards the knees, and that will give a little bit more tension. And kick out as hard as you can, and pause against the band as you get out to the hardest part, just for a second. Okay, and this is going to work the outside of your glute, or your glute medius, and it's going to isolate it. So I usually use this exercise not on its own, but with a superset, with something more compound for glutes, like a box squat, a back extension, a reverse hyper, something like that. So on its own, it's not going to be very effective unless you're very, very weak or at the start, but paired with another glute exercise, it's very effective. Kick out as hard as you can, and I'd be going, because it's such a small range of motion, I'd be going for 15 to 20 reps at least. This is the box squat with a glute emphasis. So you can start just by grabbing the bar as usual, making sure it's even, squeezing it really tight, and then going underneath. And once you're there, and you have a tight grip fit, go with a little bit wider stance and toes pointing a little bit more out than you would with a normal squat. And then focus on pushing your hips backwards and down, but keeping your chest up. So it's kind of a mixture between a good morning and a normal barbell squat. So you haven't got the depth of a normal barbell squat, and you don't lean as forward as a good morning. But you really push your hips back as hard as you can. So there's a big stretch on the glutes, and then tap the bench and thrust up from there. So big stretch position from the glutes, and then thrust up from the bottom. And doing this at the end of a session when the glutes are a bit more fatigued, or your legs are more fatigued from doing more compound exercises with heavier weight first, it's a great finisher. So I've paired this with back extension or with seated abduction. So this is the 1 1/4 chest supported lat raise. So you can start there, Lily. So up 1 and 1/4 at the top. So the purpose of having the bench is that you can't use momentum, so you're in a fixed position, so you can't swing forward to get the dumbbells up. And then the purpose of the 1/4 rep is to have an extra bit of time under tension at the hardest part of the movement, which is the top. So you're doing the two things with this exercise that fail the normal lat raise. So people using momentum is a big problem with the normal lat raise, and then people not getting the dumbbells up high enough to the area where it's peak contraction for the delts. So down low and up 1 1/4. And just a tiny little movement at the top, 1/4, perfect. And how high should you lift the dumbbells on a lat raise? I get this question all the time. Usually just to shoulder height is where you're going to feel your deltoids the most. And squeeze and go 1 more. And you'll have no trouble, if you struggle to feel your delts, normal lat raises, you'll have no trouble feeling them with this. This is the Powell raise, and this is one of my favorite movements for the rear delts. So you can start there, Lily. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your hand is underneath your body, and that's a setup at the start of the exercise that makes a big difference. And if you do that properly, then what's going to happen with the working arm is when you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to be able to keep it in a straight line, say, with your face. So come up to the top, and then coming over here. You want to keep the dumbbell as high as possible. So on that line in front of your face on the way down, rather than coming down here to lift it and shorten the range of motion. So again, you're going to feel the rear delts very, very easily with this exercise. You'll feel them working very, very hard after just a few reps. And to be able to get to 2.5 or 5 kg with these is actually quite strong for most girls. And squeeze back up, slow down to the bottom, and squeeze back up.